Hi everyone. I'm happy to share this talk with you titled Echo Techno Bio Mytho Casino. Yeah. So it is a collection of different visual metaphors of AI that I've came across in the last year. And I'm going to share with you what they are and how I came across them. So let me start with a quick intro of myself. I work in a company called Good Notes, and it's a note-taking app for people to learn and study and to work. Basically, I designed the AI part of it behind those digital papers, digital stationaries, and note-taking features. People would plan the weeks, take meeting notes, study and teach better in the classes with Good Notes. And during my last couple of years, I have to design a lot of AI features and we need to deal with a lot of metaphors or we call it mental models. Basically, it's to set expectation of the users how to interact and how to perceive with the AI feature, but it's always just sparkles. And I got so bored of it, and I want to engage with my colleagues to brainstorm what are some other less popular alternatives from a design and engineering and marketing perspective. So I think a couple months back, I had a brainstorming session with my team. So we whiteboarded a lot of metaphors. It's a really fun exercise to stretch the boundaries of mainstream tech narrative. And there are some interesting patterns, but I'm also curious, what are some other possibilities beyond my close circle in the office? And I then have to introduce my second role outside of my day job. So 2 years ago, I started a community called Mix Initiative. It's a very hyper-local community in Hong Kong where we discuss and create and debate and research on AI, creativity, and authenticity. And oftentimes we'll come across a topic that requires us to explain a difficult AI concept in plain language, and we'll need to make use of metaphors a lot. But when we say about AI, sometimes we are referring to AI as an industry or as a domain or as a product, or we're very specific at a particular technology like LLM or chatbot, or in general just machine learning models. And the way we do it is that we'll draw it in stickies, we'll debate verbally. And last month, we did a workshop with Tanya in London where we use some techniques that is very sensory, very object-based. Okay, so with all these methods within the office, with external communities, I've discovered that there is around about 5 patterns or 5 clusters of metaphors. Of course, some are not original, like maybe probably it came from the media, from other authors, but it got traction within the community. While some is a mix or a collage of existing ideas, cultural mythos, or adaptation to different worldviews. I'm going to share all 5 patterns with you today, and my goal is to inspire you to come up with your own or question the ones that I showed you. Yeah. Okay, so the first cluster is something around imperfection or distortion or some recursive nature. One very popular mentioned metaphor is the one by Ted Chiang, which is the blurry JPEG of the internet. I believe most of the audience should be familiar with this. Ted has a really great article online about this. Another metaphor that is also pretty common is something about mirrors. It could be a car's rear mirror, which always look back in history, just like how machine learning models are all often just trained with historic data. Or something about distorted or broken mirrors. Both idea has some concept of distortion or imperfection or blind spots that doesn't reflect reality as is. Okay. And then there's another one coming from another research and artist called Hito. She described large language models or generative AI machine learning models like diffusion models as something like subprime derivatives as a financial instrument. They shared a similarity where they're both powered by obscure mathematical complexity that wraps a layer on top of another layer to derive value, sometimes in a dishonest way. And it eventually adds up to a pop-up bubble that is destined to burst. And of course, eventually lead to a crisis. For the financial one, we all know about that. But for the machine learning one, will it be a crisis of meaning, crisis of culture, of truth, of trust? We don't know yet. And lastly, is a ultra processed food like chicken nuggets, ice cream, soda, or MSG. For MSG in particular, I find it really fun and interesting because in a lot of Chinese restaurants, the chef would put MSG to everything to make it flavorful. And just like how founders like to add AI to everything to make it palatable to venture capitalists. Okay, so that's the first cluster. The next one is something about techno-modernity and also how technology and tools are being omnipresent in the world we live in today. So this is probably one of the most heard metaphor where AI is like a new electricity, or AI is like nuclear energy or nuclear weapons. Another metaphor that is somehow gaining more traction today is AI is like plastics. What I like about electricity and plastic is that they both are building on top of another metaphor, which is data is the new oil. Oil as in a fossil fuel from decomposed shellfish and plants, which feels like some sort of biological data set accumulated with time, and then capitalists would extract commercial value out of this oil by transforming them into energy or plastics. Yeah, I see a lot of these kind of metaphors popping up in LinkedIn, news segment, YouTube, probably because they're very easily understandable. It's kind of also a modern marvels of technology. It's general purpose, it's utilitarian, and it's somehow viewed as an enabling infrastructure. Of course, people with a techno-progressive worldview would find these metaphors very convenient for them to justify investment and adoption, and also to calm the fears of the unknown, because this new technology is just like the other past technology that you are familiar with. But of course, critics would also hijack this metaphor by coming with some externalities or pollution caused by this electricity or energy or plastic industry. Because like many other technology, there would always be messy and unintended consequences, like toxic waste, microplastics, carbon footprint, etc. And carbon footprint, to be as particular, is really relevant to AI nowadays as well. What I like about this class of metaphor is how one of our participants twists the idea of locomotive engine and accelerationist ideas. So the metaphor is that what if AI is just like an accelerating locomotive on rails and almost jumping off a cliff? Yeah. And this visual is a critique of accelerationist idea of making things bad in the short term for the benefit of for the long term. Just like how you speed up the locomotive more and more and more before you jump off the cliff. And then you're taking a leap of faith, hoping that it's fast enough to land on the other side. And it encapsulates the fast and reckless and the furious nature of many AI companies nowadays. What you're seeing here is a illustration made by me, where I collaborate with Better Images of AI on a competition for the Digit project. So it's a capitalist hand holding a mouse, scrolling the mouse scroll wheel, and inside the computer mouse, there's two workers running inside the wheel as if like a mouse running in a mouse running wheel. Yeah, it's kind of a metaphor on the wheel of progress, how we often think is inevitable, but it's actually powered by capitalistic forces, and the labor inside this wheel of progress is oftentimes not the one being benefited, but they're being forced to adopt the technology. And I hope that this will say something about how sometimes a techno progressive metaphor can be subverted into being used for critique. Okay, the third cluster is something about growth and nature, life, and animals. So, what you're seeing here is how some chaos of particles and matter and materials being clumped to each other, and then boom, uh, comes the moment of supernova. Just like how the origin of the universe is actually emerged from chaos and complexity. And similarly, in the primordial soup, is a bunch of inorganic materials, and suddenly there's a moment, or maybe gradually, comes the origin of life. So this is trying to encapsulate the idea of some of the amazing properties that many people find LM has. It's kind of emerged out of nowhere from the sheer vast amount of volume of data. So let's start with botanics or bonsai, um, and how both some of those plants and exotic flowers could be housed inside a greenhouse or to exhibit in a zoo. Yeah. So botanics, glasshouse, zoos, bonsai, these kind of metaphors is trying to juxtapose organic and inorganic probabilities. Like nature can be very unpredictable at times, just like machine learning models, um, and it would grow and evolve. And sometimes those surprises could be sparks of joy, while sometimes it will be very frustrating. And also, this class of metaphor actually fits very well to the technical language of machine learning, like random seed, random forest, how you would prune a model, and different branches. And the notion of a zoo containing different AI models is also used by technology companies like Hugging Face. And models is just like some exotic animal species collected for observation, scientific research, showcasing, and sharing. And within many species of biological forms, a lot of animals is actually used as metaphors within a community, like different dogs or mouse, mice, monkey, chimpanzee, etc. Microsoft Word, the rover, the dog, is one of the early examples. And it's a kind of a companion animal or pet, or sometimes even a working animal, like horses, that is well integrated into human civilization. Um, and also, we attribute different kind of intelligence, agency, and reliability to these kind of animals. What's interesting about the animal metaphor is that it's something we train with rewards and punishment. It's like good AI, bad AI, and that it learns. And also, animals would behave nicely sometimes, but could get out of control and bite us back. Well, and then besides dog, there's also the other two metaphors like the hair pulling mouse from the Pixar's animated feature film Red Rolly, and also the typing monkey from the infinite monkey theorem, and also the office bamboo meme. So for the mouse, um, if you have seen the film, you will know that it's a it's a mouse that can cook, standing on the head of a chef that cannot cook. So this metaphor is just like how this animal intelligence is controlling their human counterparts to fake at this job. Just like how many people are being over reliant on AI at their day job. And lastly, the typing monkey is even like an AI as a colleague, but often a very frantic, unpredictable colleague. And speaking of animal metaphors of AI, we must mention the stochastic parrot from the widely cited paper from 2021, where LLM is just like a parrot that mimics human speech without true understanding what it's talking about. But oftentimes, this metaphor is being used as a critical way to expose LM limitations. But I don't know about you. I actually like parrots. I think they're kind of fun and cute and wonky. And in this illustration, the stochastic parrot is being portrayed as a chaotic working partner, working animal within a workplace. Sometimes it is leashed, sometimes making a mess, and humans are improvising how to work with it together. Okay, and this is an example how a metaphor being used for criticism could be subverted into a more neutral or even a more uh, optimistic view on AI. Okay, the fourth cluster is something about myth and esoteric and monster and cosmic. Yeah. Let me start with one of the most dangerous metaphor I've encountered in my workshops, which is some of the participants would half jokingly say that, oh, maybe God can be a good metaphor for AI because it's all knowing, all powerful, and it has its divine plan, just like how the big tech had its own roadmap. Um, I find this kind of metaphors really dangerous, but also really interesting to study at, because it plays with the creationist and end times narrative, the religious ones, um, and it also tap into the hype and fear of the mass population, where AI is something to revere, to awe, and is irrefutable. Uh, and unfortunately, nowadays it also um, reflect the rising trend of AI psychosis, where people start imagining something supernatural or spiritual from the interaction with the chatbot. Another similar metaphor that is always being described in data science literature is that AI as a practice or as a domain is just like alchemy, because it's full of try and error, it's guessing, and doing a lot of experiments. And speaking of alchemy, one would not forget many historical attempts of making artificial life, like the homunculus, where and there's also many equivalent in other cultural mythologies, and most of them has a recurring theme where, oh, there's a some very knowledgeable person, uh, like a scientist or alchemist. They do experiments and mix chemicals together to create something, to create an artificial life, or sometimes a miniature humanoid. And then this humanoid would lose control and bring destruction, etc. And the metaphor of AI as monsters have many other variations. Like one very popular meme where people describe LLM as a Shoggoth. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. A Shoggoth with a mask, with a human mask. Basically, a Lovecraftian monster that that composed of the darkest corner of the internet and put on a friendly mask. And there's also another pretty fun monster metaphor that I come across, which is the walking hand from the franchise of the Adams family, which is often called the Thing. Uh, it's a uh, it's a kind of living creature that looks like coming from human, but it's fun and horror together that could be companion and utilitarian sometimes. Lastly, another monster that is pretty popularly mentioned is parasite, where AI is parasitic. Oftentimes being mentioned, AI is a parasite to the creative community. It sucks off the blood of all the artist's work, all the illustrations online. But there are also people who use the parasite as a positive metaphor where they drive some sort of alien parasites from comic books, Western and Japanese ones, where sometimes the parasite can form a symbiosis with the host and they can become mutually beneficial. Just like how AI benefits from our data, and some knowledge workers would benefit from AI's productivity gains, if any. And because we're speaking about supernatural, there's three more. A superstitious metaphor, where usage of AI is often being described as magical, or they're conjuring spirits, or summoning something, or channeling voices beyond their original intent. And AI tools is a medium to do that. One Western example is the Ouija board, where multiple human hands would would hold on top of a triangle, and in this metaphor, they're all holding on a mouse cursor, and they would move across the Ouija board with different printed alphabetical letters and numbers, where collectively with their finger moving, just like they're channeling a spirit's guidance to answer their questions. I like this metaphor a lot because um, it's kind of hinting that the LM output has a collective authorship. There are multiple humans involved, and they all shared some sort of quasi agency or shared agency. So the people are the ones that created the original data, the ones who label the data, who train the data, and finally the user community. They are all involved in the LM's output. And this obscured illusion of agency from an inanimate object, from an object that would be inanimate unless there's human hands involved. I think it draw parallels with the LM. And another similar metaphor from the Chinese community is kao qim, where in English called fortune stake. It's a habit where people would have a lot of sticks inside a bamboo bottle, and they would shake it, shake it, shake it, and then there's one of the stick fell off, and that is the answer from the deities on your questions. And the one who come up with this metaphor is trying to draw parallels with vibe coding, where they will the shaking is actually how they are vibing with the model, where hopefully the next line of code is what they need, or is answering their entrepreneurial ambitions. And lastly, the fortune cookie, where people would find meaning and comfort in random words, even though they know perfectly sure that it's not written for them, as if there is some divine logic that brought these words to them. And this kind of reminds us of the Elisa effect, where people would find meaning out of mechanical output strings. Okay, we're almost there. The fifth cluster is something about exploration, chances, and games. People would describe the AI industry or the domain as the frontier, the final frontier, or the Wild West, where we need to go full speed, and there's a gold rush, and or maybe it's saying that it's unregulated and needs some sheriff to bring order and control. Then the second is something about gambling, in this case, slots machine and dices. So how LM is actually a game of probability. And oftentimes there are someone who loses and someone who wins with capitalistic gains. Every time we prompt and we press the send button, there is a certain percent that will get what we need, what we want, and also, or maybe we'll get some junk out of it. And then we retry and retry until we get what we need, just like playing a slots machine. And lastly, the dice one is very visual, where 4 dice stack together into a grid, where the gap between these 4 dice at the center resemble a sparkle or a star shape, as if this game of probability, which means playing dice, people would find emergent properties or magical sparkles within the dice's gaps. Okay, so this is the last cluster of metaphors, and I hope that this would inspire you to think out of the box of the ordinary mainstream metaphors, because I think it's not about picking one correct metaphor. It's about deliberation and diversity, and so that we can remain flexible to adjust our mental models as the world evolve, as the technology evolve. And personally, I think the best metaphors are those that invite imagination and dialogues from all parties, people who are progressive of technology or or they're activists that criticize technology. And the ones that invite dialogues are the ones with rich and inclusive lexicons, which means there are many ways to interpret it, and it adapts to different culture and narratives. Yeah, I hope that these metaphors and examples I show would spark up some questions inside and inspire you to come up with your own set. Yeah, thank you.